Hey everyone, I am so excited to have this conversation today. I've got so many amazing friends in the speaking industry who are serving all of these incredible speakers and helping to share the messages that they are looking to get out there into the client space. So, my great friend, John DeMato, is here to have a conversation today about visual storytelling, the changes within the industry, and all of the exciting things that we have coming up in 2021 and beyond. So, hey, John, how are you?
I am doing magical, and I thank you for having me for this little conversation. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I mean, you and I are always having phone conversations and we always book them for about 30 minutes. And I don't think we've had one that's finished under 60 minutes because we just get in a roll. And so we're like, let's just jump on camera and have this conversation on camera because the way that you speak about the future of the industry and how much you care about your clients and what's really making a difference out there in the marketplace is kind of in the same vein of what I do. So yeah, would you like to talk a little bit more about that and like how 2020 has evolved for you?
2020. This will be the year that we'll be talking about until we're sitting in rocking chairs on the porch staring at the sunset, right?
I mean, yeah, the other thing is don't say that because we discovered in one of our conversations that we're pretty much the same age. So don't say that you're old or anything like that.
Actually, I was on a Clubhouse conversation earlier this morning, and a woman described herself as old. I'm so old, and I jumped on, and I'm like, "Listen, man, you're not old. You're distinguished, and how dare you talk about yourself like that?" So we're distinguished. How's that?
I
Is that
love that.
better?
I love that. I love that. Yes,
Yeah,
let's roll with that for sure.
yeah. But with regard to what's going on with the speaking industry, with experts and presenting and facilitating and keynotes and conferences and summits, I mean, obviously we've all been thrown for a bit of a loop, and I have a feeling that this loop is actually going to it's going to be with us moving forward. Because if you really think about it, how many of the people that work in this space were already doing things virtually to begin with? And the answer to that is most, if not all, but most. There are very few pure keynoters that exist on this planet. The reality is the majority of them have multiple angles to their business. They're trainers, they're facilitators, they have mastermind groups, they do webinars to bring people into their world, they sell books, they do all of these things that require outside um, efforts that go beyond the stage work. So as far as I'm concerned, and based on all of the conversations I've had with my clients, I know one client in particular raised his in-person speaker fee exponentially because he doesn't want to go on the road as much anymore. He wants to actually sit in front of his laptop and do his thing and stay in that world because it's now become um, not so much about the way in which he does his thing and how he helps his clients get past what's holding them back, but it's a quality of life issue for these people. They've realized, oh wow, you mean I can roll out of bed, have pajama pants on, throw on a button down and maybe a jacket and kind of put some crap in my hair and I'm camera ready. This has become a very enticing opportunity for people, and it ain't going away anytime soon, even if we wanted it to anyway.
I think what you say there about, virtual events reflects a lot of what's happening in corporate America with the clients that I'm working with as well. They are discovering that their workforce is actually quite happy to stay at home. And a lot of big organizations are trying to figure out how they can make that more permanent. Because it also makes a lot of economic sense for organizations. They're not paying those big rents on those big buildings. Their employees are happier. And spoiler alert, when your employees are happier, they will work more readily for you. It creates that bond between employer and employee. So I think that what we're seeing in for speakers wanting to be more at home really does reflect a lot of what's happening in corporate America as well.
Yeah.
And as far as like the diversification of speakers' portfolios of work, I mean, I don't know about you, John, but I don't think that there was, and this is kind of controversial, I don't think that there was any new problems in 2020. I think that 2020 just really shone a light on underlying issues that people were kind of getting away with, and really opened the doors on those. Because if your portfolio of work, your incomes weren't diversified beforehand and you were just relying upon this one thing, that's always a really risky thing to be doing in your life. And so
Yes.
there was a lot of
No.
speakers
Yeah.
who might have got a little bit caught short that didn't have that diversification of the portfolio of what they do. And gosh, I'm seeing every single speaker, exactly like you mentioned, is developing more of a comprehensive book of solutions that they can offer clients. It's like a menu book. Like you really are still being solutions orientated for your clients, but you have lots of different ways that you can help them solve those problems.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know one client or even colleague within my community who hasn't revisited the idea of figuring out how to take their IP and fitting it into a different model that is independent of the need to be in front of people. I mean, I'm doing it myself as we speak. Um, I've created an online course. I never thought I was going to do that or had the desire to do that, but I've done it. I've also revisited my portrait work, and the way that I see it is, it's as if I'm stripping my main core business down for parts, and what I'm trying to discern is what parts of this service, this bigger service, that I can do in a way that doesn't involve being in the room with the people. And now I'm shooting books, and then of course there's the virtual photography, which that didn't even exist in my community up until April of last year. And at the end of the day, what it forces you to do is actually be a better business owner and be more proactive. And instead of simply just being reactive, initially at the beginning, we were all reacting because we all basically got slapped in the face really, really ridiculously, really hard, and it threw us all for a loop. And now we're at the point where, okay, we're still in this thing. We're still not out of the woods with what's going on in the world, and we need to figure out ways that we can leverage our expertise in a way that's going to solve problems for those that we serve in a different way. And it's very challenging, but it's also something that, it's one of these things where it always takes a tragedy or some kind of five-alarm fire that forces people to move and do things and be in the moment and figure out these things because we don't have a choice. It's unfortunate that that happens to be the case, but if you answer the bell and you do the work and you really put in the time to understand where you are and where your clients' needs are and address them specifically and do it in a way that makes sense for both parties and turns it otherwise crappy situation into something that's more of a win-win, then you're on the right track. And at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're here to solve problems, and we need to tune in and figure them out.
I couldn't agree with you more. Um, one speaker that I listen to all the time, Liz Bohannon, she talks about beginner's pluck, as in pluck meaning spirited and determined courage. And her whole message is about when you're in that beginner stage, it frees you from being within the confines of feeling like you are protecting your status of where you are. You're far more likely to be able to make a really bold decision and try something new. And heck, that's really where everyone was last year. So for sure, I think that exactly what you're saying is like just having that, seeing this opportunity as being free to try new things, is absolutely correct. Now, I do want to go back to one thing that you said, virtual photography. Now, when I
Yes.
first heard that, I'm like, is that like a screen grab or how does that work? Can you talk a
How
little bit
dare you?
about that, right?
Screen grab, bite your tongue, young lady. How dare you?
But I
How
know
dare
when I
you?
first heard it, I'm like, what the heck? That doesn't even make sense to me. So please define it for me.
It didn't make sense to me either until I started doing it. So I guess we're in the same boat with that one, right?
This is what you come up with when you're in the magical land of beginners. Like, what do we do now?
You know, essentially, what virtual photography is it's the opportunity for presenters, for experts, all of all different shapes and sizes, to illustrate for their audience, whomever that audience is, what the experience of learning with them and being transformed through their expertise, what that looks like on a screen, because um, it's different. It's definitely a different experience, but the words that are shared, the thoughts and the insights and all of the juicy goodness is still the same. But it's important for people to get a sense of what it looks like before they dive in and sign up for your program or go to your event or take a workshop, whatever that happens to be. So, what I do is get a Zoom link or whatever telecommunicating program people are using, and we open that up on the screen. I put my laptop on the folding table that's sitting right next to me, and I move it through various rooms of my apartment, and I roll around on the floor and point the camera at the screen and shoot a whole bunch of images. And the reason why I shoot it in that way is because that is exactly the same way that I shoot a live event. It's exactly the same way that I shoot a workshop. It's the same exact way that I shoot people's lifestyle portraits. It's creating that level of consistency through the aesthetic that I create using what's available to me in my space, in addition to the way that I photograph people to put them in the best light possible. Because what we want to do with these images is, yes, show the tech, show the environment to make it feel like a home environment, because a lot of people are watching from home. But it's also about capturing people in the same way when they're on a stage. We want those flattering, powerful, uplifting, emotive expressions. We want the body language with the hands, with the face. If they're using props, we want to see that. We want all of these different elements so that there is a familiarity with what it will look like when they sit down and take the course or attend the event or what have you. And that's where this thing came from. The experts went to virtual, and I simply followed them.
I love that. And I'm sure you saw exactly the same thing as I did last summer, where it was a bit of a nerve wracking time within the industry because, as industry professionals, we were recommending, and my colleagues at IESB were recommending clients, great speakers who had always been incredible and phenomenal on stage, but had not been able to pivot their keynote and their technology and their presentation to virtual in a very effective way. And clients got really nervous. And so agents got really nervous. And the whole industry is like, ooh, where are we showing value? Like, how are we creating value in this industry that we so love? Because our clients still have these problems that they need to be solved. We know we have the right keynote speakers who can actually deliver in this sense, but clients are really nervous about what they're getting. And when you talk about giving clients a realistic sense of exactly what they're buying to create that customer confidence, uh, that is absolutely what I saw coming into late summer in the fall within the industry. Speakers were getting really smart about the assets that they were sharing out there with
Mhm.
bureau agents, with meeting planners, with clients directly, to take away a lot of the fluff and the incredible music and the fast moving graphics. What clients really wanted was an understanding of like, great, but what does it really look like when my people are at home in their pajama pants and wearing a business shirt on the other end of the screen, is the speaker doing that as well? What are we? Where is the level of professionalism? What does your technology look like? Do you have a great camera setup? Are you able to look directly at the camera, or are you one of those people that's kind of over here? We've all been in those Zoom conferences. You're like, hello, hello, I'm here, I'm here, and you're like,
I'm
you're
looking at
using,
you. What are you talking about? I'm looking right at you. What's the
or
problem?
my favorite is the person who's looking at themselves, and like, you're still there. I promise you're still there. Just connect with me in the middle. This is where I am. Please talk to me. So that is really what the industry was very hungry for. And it was
And you
actually, go
you
ahead.
came up with a. I was gonna say you came up with a little solution for that, didn't
I
you?
did. And the origin story of this is kind of funny. My dear friend, business partner, my sister in crime, Mirjana Nokovic, who came from Harry Walker Agency. Her and I have been, sisters in business for, gosh, quite a while now. But we were
Hmm.
having a glass of wine on a Friday afternoon on a Zoom call. Hello, that was everyone in 2020, nearly every week. And we were lamenting about this particular problem. And we're like, what would it look like if there was a unicorn event that we could record for speakers that had a great moderated Q&A, that we could capture and then show that to clients to help them, show off the real value and the effort that they're putting into these virtual presentations and show that they have a real value out there in the marketplace. And then we're like, or we could just create that event. It's the glory of it being a virtual setting is that we can record that presentation as if it's going live.
Yeah.
We can record Mirjana, who is incredibly media trained, doing a moderated Q&A with you, saying, hey, thank you so much for that keynote presentation, and she pulls on different threads of it. So it's a very natural progression of what a virtual event would really look like. And then we have those two long form pieces because, spoiler alert, people want to kind of see the whole thing to make sure that you can actually hold a 20 or 30-minute conversation, because that's a real skill. That's a real skill. So clients
Yeah.
really want to see that. And oh, by the way, we cut it up into all these little sound bites and assets and that sort of thing. And we're finding that really simple editing is, it's really landing deals, and it's helping speakers be able to show their value to clients out there in the marketplace and show them what they're actually buying, which, is kind of important.
No, it's when you first mentioned the thought to me. Well, the first thought was, "Oh my God, editing. God bless you for wanting to do that." But the second thought was the level of value that you're providing your clients is, first of all, it's when we talk about solving problems, that is a gigantic problem because photos can only take you so far, but when it comes to the goods, you need to have the video to prove the fact that you can actually carry a conversation for as long as you said. Because I've been in plenty of meetings where, if I'm being kind, that they fell a little short, and that's the thing when you're going into this kind of no man's land of virtual, and all of a sudden everybody's an expert and they want to get out there and start talking about topics that they've never spoken about, done the research, had the anecdotal evidence, or ever got paid by a client to do what they're talking about. It is essential that they have these elements. Now, my one question with regard to these clips that you create, what's the feedback been from the speakers that you work with?
The feedback is like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I have these because they help me close that deal. All of those fluffy things that were hanging out in my sales pipeline, I now have something to send to them. And
Yeah.
they are closing deals. Because, I mean, while I love being able to help people tell their stories, like, that industry doesn't exist unless there's an economy underneath it to support it. And what I love about the work that we do is that we help speakers to be able to present their actual value and show clients a real ROI on the work and the consulting, the keynoting, that great presentation that turns into a workshop, all of those things, be able to show clients like this is the ROI that we're going to be able to bring to you. And that's kind of the most exciting thing for me is like, I feel like the work that I'm doing is helping to create stability in the economy of this industry, which is so cool. And that's the feedback that we're getting from clients is like, oh my gosh, I actually look like I can go forward and really ask for my fee again, and know that clients are going to be able to see that and go, yeah, absolutely, let's do this, let's get this under contract. But when you were talking about the sales cycle for working with clients, I think you and I kind of bookend the process because without a lot of those visuals on a website, because clients, they're looking around for a speaker, even if they're working with a bureau agent, a lot of the times they're going to go to that website. And if this the photographs and the visuals on that website are of them standing on a stage in front of 5,000 people, it's an automatic turnoff. And
Yeah.
like, well, great, but that's not what my event is not going to look like. That's what my event's not going to look like. And thanks for the reminder. So I think that like the work that you do as well, like being able to realistically show like this is what my camera setup looks like and those really cool like behind the scenes shots and those in the moment visuals is so important.
It is. All of them are. And with respect to, and by all of them, I'm talking about lifestyle portraits and high quality self portraits and the virtual photography and other aspects of your business need to be reflected in your content because we're in the relationship game. People don't want to work with people that they don't like. And the way that but it also has to be a mix of you know what you're talking about. You are an expert. You've positioned yourself as such through your online presence, which incorporates all of the images as well as those images visually punctuating the sentiment of every single story you want to tell. So there's that piece. But when people arrive on your website, you think of it as a warm digital introduction into who you are, who you serve, and why you do what you do. And that's what the photos do. The photos start the conversation. But when you're talking about the type of work that you do on the other side of this, you're more represent more of the closing piece of the conversation. Whereas the photos inspire someone to pick up the pen, the video that shows what it actually will look like, that's what's going to inspire people to sign on the dotted line. So it's not one or the other. It's a yes and scenario when you're talking about the complementing aspects of photography and video. They work together as a team and not independently in silos. And that's one of the things that I've learned along my time while working within the speaker, trainer, expert community, is that you need it all, and it all has to have a cohesiveness to it. They all play nice together in the sandbox, and then that's what eventually will create that initial, ooh, this person looks interesting, and oh, I like the way he or she is talking about their expertise through with their personality, and then it's oh, so this is what it actually looks like when game time is going. And that's what you need, especially in this day and age. You need everything because it is so damn noisy online, anywhere you go on social. It's just so full of crap. And what you need to do is create a clear signal through that noise by being consistent and purposeful with the way that you're presenting yourself through your photos and as well as through your video assets.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as we started to go to virtual last year, and I'm sure people were asking you the same sort of questions like what's working, what's not working, what should I be doing? Um, and it always comes back to that same thing that kind of existed before is good content delivered clearly and simply wins the day. And, as long as you have that as your guiding light, you can really help to navigate yourself through all of these kinds of changes. And you and I both agree that like virtual is totally here to stay. I think that even after we're all able to get back in person, there is so much value added to this platform and this way of being communicated. But I'm wondering if you have any kind of inklings on the what next. I mean, I know you mentioned Clubhouse, which is my new obsession, and I'm wondering what that will be doing to our industry as we kind of push into this year into next.
I'm still on the fence about it because there's already so much noise on there. It's actually incredible how fast that happened, but it happened and I'm still trying to figure out how me personally I will leverage the platform. I'm still figuring it out, but I think in terms of the industry itself, it's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be a hybrid moving forward. There's going to be these, VIP groups in person, and then the rest will be on screens watching on Zoom or whatever platform they use, and that's what it's going to look like. So I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I also have an inkling that, I mean, we will see big events when it's possible, once the vaccine is done, because at the end of the day, we are wired as human beings for relationships and interpersonal connection. This is what helped us sustain as a species way back in the day. And it's not like our hard wiring has completely changed over the course of a year. It's going to take a lot longer than that to do that. And I don't think it will, because, I mean, how much time have we spent? It's great to have this, and there is a certain level of gratitude that I have that this exists. Aside from the fact that it has been a business thing, it's a life. Human beings in the room, they're talking to me, and we're talking and having a dialogue. That's awesome, because otherwise, I'm going to sit at home and talk to my money tree that's sitting on my ledge right now, getting some sun. So the idea would be that there will be some kind of a middle ground, but the people who want to get back out on stages and be in front of a room, it will be afforded to them probably. I mean, from what I'm hearing from some of my more successful clients that we're talking 100, 200 days on the road, those people, Q3, Q4 this year, maybe, but probably Q1 2022 when that can start happening. I mean, if we want to get realistic about it, worldwide. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you need to really build this out if you already haven't. And if you already haven't, you're far behind the game as it is. I mean, how many people that you've been working with on your end, like, they're coming to you with a traditional reel, they're coming with you with traditional stage photos to promote. I mean, what do you tell them? It's like, dude, you need to step it up, because this is not going to work. There is an asynchronicity when it comes to what it looked like to what it looks like now, right? So how are those conversations going with those people when you smack them with reality?
You know what? People come to me because they are looking to make a change. And there have been some speakers who felt like they were late to the game. But you know what? The second best time to plant an oak tree is right now, if it wasn't 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's too late to change and kind of lean into that portion of it. And you know what? We've worked with some change speakers who are very difficult to change. And I'm like, oh no, but you really have to see this opportunity. Let's take
You
into
talk
account
about
some of these
this.
things that you
Yeah.
say in your keynote. Let's
Yeah.
let's apply that right now. And so yes, but I think that maybe what happened last year is that we were given a bit of a false flag. We're like, well, in the summer we'll be able to get back in the fall. And that certainly didn't happen. And then everyone's like, well, maybe it'll be summer next year. But I kind of agree with you. And that's really what I'm hearing from my industry colleagues and what I'm sort of seeing on my book of business myself for the people that I have, secured gigs for already in 2021. They are all virtual.
Yeah.
There's a couple that are going to be hybrid, but when we write that contract, there is a specific clause that says if we go 100% virtual, this is exactly what it looks like, because we need to plan for that realistically, and everyone needs to know exactly what it's going to look like when, if and when that kind of happens. And I think your kind of predictions of Q1 in 2022 for the industry to kind of get back a lot more in person is
Yeah.
going to, that's what my spidey sense tells me as well. But what we kind of already had a model for what was going to happen in our industry already, because like just think about, like, you and I are both old enough to be able to do this. Hey yo, like about 12 or so years ago, when you would go out shopping for something, you would go have, like, there would be a big box store, there would be a mum and pop store, there would be like a little community store, like those medium sized sort of stores. And then Amazon came along, right, and just completely wiped out that middle part of the market. So
Yeah.
either you were a massive big box store, or you, which I would equate to those like massive Las Vegas style of events or those huge convention style of events. I still think that they will come back into the marketplace because there's certainly, a desire to have those. You had the smaller sort of boutique stores, like the ones that really lent into the value and the community they built within their client base. They still exist, and we patronize them because they're the ones that we walk into and we're like, oh my god, it's like cheers, and we feel warm and seen and we're part of that team. Like those smaller types of conferences, I think that they still will come back as well. What I think has gone away forever is those medium size, well, probably could have been a Zoom call type of things. And we've all been to them, right? You turn up, you get the bag, the t-shirt, the lanyard, there's a lot of high-fiving, and then you leave at the end of the conference and you've written like 2 notes. Those kind of like middle-sized type of conferences are gone away. I don't think that they're coming back. So what I'm looking forward to seeing in 2022 is, those smaller boutique, really focused, really niched, great takeaway, community building type of events. They are my jam. I love them so much. And you know what? I like to go to a couple of the bigger ones as well, but those bigger ones are going to have to get so much better because you are now competing against people experiencing a virtual event, and maybe they don't want to pay a higher ticket price, and those higher ticket prices is really what supported those larger events. So it's going to be interesting to see it shake out. But I always think about, in my mind, when I'm thinking about the events industry, kind of what happened when Amazon came in and just sort of wiped out the middle of the economy for retail shopping.
Yeah, 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 like those little one day event kind of things, I can see those going by the wayside because I mean, as it is, the overhead for the people that are doing these things in not all cases, but in some of the cases, they're overextending themselves financially to begin with. So if you can just pay for a Zoom license and get people to come on here and your overhead is, coffee to keep yourself going throughout the whole thing, it's a lot cheaper. But I still think that those big events have a lot of it's people. You know what it
Mm-hmm.
is? I think at the very beginning it's going to be a mad rush to do these big ones because people miss it so much. And then maybe reality might set in where all right, is this financially feasible? Does this make sense? Okay, maybe we can break this up into different Zooms, turn it into a different value add for people. The breakout things can easily be transferred to a virtual space. All of the stuff works. You could still, shout out to all the sponsors and do that through the reels and the way that you present it. And it's all possible. But yeah, the middle ones, I definitely can see how those aren't going to make it because it just doesn't make that much sense because it didn't make as much sense before anyway financially. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. At the end of the day, I just hope that we all have work.
See, it goes back to that point that you made because, like, at the end of the day, why does this industry even exist, right? Why does it even exist? Because people like to be in community, because we more naturally learn and communicate through storytelling, because our clients that we serve have issues that they need an external person to come in and help them work through a lot of these, pieces to turn around their company or help them build and grow, or all of these sort of things, all of those problems still exist, right? All of
Yeah.
those problems will continue to exist for all of humanity, right? And that's really what this industry is based on. So I do think that there is an incredible future for this industry. And I think a lot of it is going to stay looking a lot like this sort of thing that we're doing now.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. I think that's cool because just as a, remember when like mobile phones first came out? And again, I know how old you are. So when we first got mobile phones and they were so expensive, like the technology to buy them, to make a phone call. Oh my gosh, how many dollars per minute is this? Well, that's what it was like in Australia anyway. It was like really expensive to kind of get a
Yeah.
phone. And now it's just it's far more affordable. Well, it depends which fancy iPhone you're investing in, but the actual plans are kind of far more affordable. And I think that same transition will happen with the platforms around virtual events because so many of them have kind of just exploded for last year. I think we will at some point reach some kind of ish market saturation, and then at that point in time the price of them will start to come down, and at that point the economics of holding like these larger events online is like really changed again. So it becomes even more attractive to host a virtual event, especially for those mid-sized conferences that we're talking about, to have those be online.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it would make sense to do it in that way because it just makes more financial sense. And that's kind of where people's head, I mean, as business owners, we're always constantly assessing the pros and cons of what we're investing into with regards to any aspect of our business. But regardless of where these presenters present, regardless of the format, regardless of anything that involves that aspect to what they do, at when it comes down to it, the way you promote yourself still is the same thing. Video existed before, photos existed before, all of the things that were shot before are still completely relevant, and the video, that things like what you're doing, is completely relevant. It's not new. It's just it's not reinventing a wheel. It's putting a shiny new rim on it and rolling around in the street with it. But I mean,
Yes, and what was closing deals for you 12 months ago needs to be revisited.
yeah,
Yes, if it's not, you got to take a really good look at like the assets that you're using to be able to speak to the clients in the specific situation that everyone is in now. So definitely refreshing those. And I know that you've talked about like the great successes that your clients have had by just sort of making those small changes and communicating their the realistic value that they are bringing to clients is paying off. Like it is helping them maintain and even grow their position within the industry, right?
absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, again, we are in the relationships business.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just commoditizing our time completely down to nothing. I mean, the conversations are had, people are nurturing these relationships over time, and eventually it pays itself off. But there still needs to be that attention and that effort. And what I would say is if you're spending all this time alone by yourself, what better time now than to invest in the infrastructure of how you market and promote your services by doing all of the things, putting it out into the world, setting an intention to be consistent with it and delivering it, and then following through on the engagement that you receive. I mean, that hasn't changed and that's not going to change. But what does change is the way in which you share all of that stuff, in what format it looks like. So now instead of just, doing a regular stage reel, you're doing virtual stuff. And then what'll happen when the world opens up a little bit more again and we do these hybrids and there is more of these events that we, live stuff, then now the next iteration will be hybrid reels. in person, virtual,
Yeah.
and that'll be the same thing. And then on my end of the conversation, I mean, I'm still doing branded lifestyle portraits because again, that's not going to go away. You still need to do what you have to do. Obviously, it's been curtailed immensely because of the fact that people don't want to be anywhere near me without a mask and a hazmat suit, and God forbid you come into my house and you want to go to a co-working space. What are you, nuts? I'm not shooting there. Jesus, are you trying to get me killed? But be that as it may, the virtual stuff does play a nice piece to it, and it does complement the other aspects to the promotion, and it's not going away.
I mean, given the challenges of people, with the hazmat suit situation trying to take photos, I know a lot of people are trying to take their own photos. And I recently actually purchased your How to Take Better Self Portraiture,
Oh yeah, that's
which
right. I
is like,
forgot
it's
about
like
that.
selfies for people who are, a little bit more grown up. It's a more grown up version. It's like your great aunt's, selfies, a little bit more professional, a little bit more polished. And I have really been enjoying it, and I've learned a lot. So could you share a couple of tips out of that for everyone?
Well, how about this? What have you learned from it? What are your takeaways? I forgot that you bought it, by the way. I know you did, and I totally forgot about it. So,
I
where are you
did.
up to? Where are you up to?
So
Okay,
like the
first of all,
composition of the photograph is like and the different angles and the composition of the photograph, all of these different settings that were already in my iPhone that I didn't even know existed. Like I didn't know that there was like this whole grid situation that you can use to be able to line up your photo properly. So then when you click that button and you look at it, it's like, oh, that actually looks like it's framed correctly. Like that was a biggie for me. I'm like, how did I not know that this existed? So funny.
well, first of all, that makes me super happy inside. Thank you, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this, who the hell would have ever thought I'd be an online educator? But this is what happens when you got coronavirus floating around the world. But so basically, what Annette is mentioning is the course called "Shoot It Yourself." Develop a portrait photographer's eye with your phone, and the idea behind it is to empower business owners specifically, because this is who I serve, um, to be able to create well composed images when a professional photographer is not around. And in this day and age, that's much harder to come by. Even in days when you can hire a photographer, you don't have him or her around 24/7. And moments happen throughout your day that you'd like to capture. So, what I decided to create was something that could be that support in that aspect of my clients' lives. And what I did was create a 9 module course that breaks down the basics of understanding what goes into creating a compelling self portrait. And I don't use the phrase selfie specifically because a selfie implies that it's some crappy throwaway. I'm going to slap this up there and make something out of it. And my goal is to educate every person who purchases this program that when you have an intention behind what you're trying to do, and that you have a fundamental knowledge of what actually goes into creating that type of photo, automatically that shift in mindset will increase the production value and the aesthetic and the quality behind the photo, so that it's not just some throwaway thing you throw up there because you don't feel like you've posted enough over the past 4 days and you just want to slap something up there. You're being much more intentional and purposeful with it, because then you can incorporate your content along with that image, and it creates much more of a profound impact on the audience you serve. So I'm excited that you've dove in, and I want to see some of these photos because I'm going to harass you about it now. And I will be, because with everyone who's purchased the class, the course, I have a private Facebook group, and I encourage everyone to go in there and throw their photos up for some discussion. And it's been really fun. I never ever thought I would be talking to a speaker about their self portraits. But I have to tell you, it's really, really selfishly, it's a lot of fun for me. But more about it is when I hear people say, "Oh my God, I didn't know there was a grid. Now I know the composition. I get it, the rule of thirds, and this and that." And it's a different kind of satisfaction because I'm not photographing the person, but to be able to give them the knowledge to be able to do it on their own. You could teach a man to fish, they'll eat for a day. Or what is it? No, you give a man a fish, they learn to eat for a day. You teach how to fish, they eat forever. That's awesome. And that goes full circle back to the people that I serve. And it's really, really cool. It's like, oh, this is
Mhm.
why you guys do this. This is fun,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. No, I've really enjoyed it because, and it's so difficult because, you want to have yourself looking forward facing, very professional. But, it is very difficult to kind of, book a photographer right now because it's for so many reasons. And, when you look online at similar sort of courses, I'm like, oh, this does not speak to the mission that I am looking to get across. And so I really
What do you mean
enjoyed
by
it.
that? I'm sorry to cut you. What do you mean by that
So I'm
specifically?
not an influencer. I'm not looking for clickbait, photographs to put up on Instagram is not what the mission that I am looking for when I am taking a photograph of myself with my phone for my business. I I'm over 40. I have a professional business. And so it's just a very different sort of thing. And even just the way that you speak to me, I through the course, I feel like we're on the phone having a conversation. And I think I emailed you that as well as I finished module one. I'm like, it just feels like you and I having one of those like, long winded chats that we kind of do, like we're having now. Like it's speaking to me in the way that I can absorb that information and be able to practically use it. And you explain things in enough depth that I get it, and I'm certainly not a techie, but I also don't feel like I'm being mansplained to. So that is kind of important
No
to me.
mansplaining. No, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa,
It's a
whoa.
mansplaining free course, you guys.
Not me. No, no bad. No, 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 no. We
This
love
is it.
everybody. We love everybody. Okay. I just want to make that clear. I respect everyone. Thank you.
For sure, for sure. That definitely comes across. And, I so appreciate it. So, I mean, as we want to wrap up this one here, I mean, I've so enjoyed this conversation. And literally, this is exactly what it's like when you and I get on these long calls because we both have this incredible passion for our industry. We're always looking for, what's this cool new thing? How is this working? How is this not working? How can we, better serve our clients and better support the industry? So this is really like just you and I shooting the shit on those like really long and also really fun calls and that sort of thing as well. But do you have, I really want you to give like one solid tip for someone to do like right after they're watching this to take a better self-portrait with their phone.
I would say probably the coolest function that you could do on your phone, regardless if it's an iPhone or if it's an Android or a Google Pixel or whatever. Look on your phone. First of all, front-facing camera we're talking about. Stop fooling around with the back camera and trying to do it without looking. Always use the front-facing camera if your phone has it, because it gives you an immediate what you see is what you get type of scenario. And that right off the bat helps. But the second piece to it is put the phone in whatever your phone calls portrait mode, where it creates uh, in regular parlance, the blurry background. In professional photographer terms, that refers to creating a shallow depth of field, because what that does is it creates the opportunity to make everything in that image about you, because the background is out of focus. You are in sharp focus, and that will give you the opportunity to create images that pop, regardless of the fact that it wasn't taken with a professional camera. But it doesn't matter. It was created with the intention of a professional photographer.
I love that tip. I use that tip, and that tip has improved my own self portraiture with my
Yeah, yeah, it
iPhone.
does. Damn right it does. That thing's pretty awesome.
And on that note, I think we better wrap it up. Otherwise, we could go on forever, but we probably shouldn't. I have so loved this call. Thank you so much for being my industry buddy and my colleague in here. And let's do this again soon.
Thank you for having me, and just let me know. We'll set it up.
Perfect. Bye.
Bye.